Aloha everyone, welcome. I'm Abaya and today I will be guiding a practice with our theme of this internal rinse. Just waking up awareness in the areas that we have forgotten so that we can start to bring movement, bring nourishment, and release tension in these forgotten areas. So with that, let's begin by laying down. You'll turn to the left and take your time comfortably softening so the shoulders and the head and neck feel supported as you transition. And then when you have eventually brought the back down to the earth, it's up to you whether you extend your legs or bend the knees. And I'll give everyone a moment to get situated. Hello, hello, welcome. And then eventually start to find stillness. Close the eyes if that feels comfortable to you. And give yourself permission to relax. Thumbs up if you can hear me. Okay? Okay, great, thanks. And try to close the mouth if that is accessible. And really feel the breath as it travels in through the nostrils and the space behind the nostrils. Letting the face actually become more spacious, as if the breath were clearing away any residue in the sinuses. And eventually let the breath clear the path down through the throat. Try to feel the breath evenly on left and right sides of the throat. And the breath travels down into the lungs, the contents of the rib cage. And imagine as the breath comes into the lungs that the rib cage is able to evenly expand through every single rib. There are muscles around the ribs, and the shape of our rib cage can actually change based on that musculature and our breathing patterns. You might even feel that stretch sensation as the full breath spreads out into the rib cage. Try to feel first the whole front of the rib cage, from the collarbones all the way down the sternum, all the way out to the sides of the body. And start to feel the back of the rib cage, the area contacting the earth. Feel the back body spreading out in all directions, and try to do this in as relaxed a way as possible. So you're not taking a deep breath or forcing anything. Rather, just letting your consciousness fill and expand. And all of those cues kind of emphasized the inhale, which can be kind of stimulating. And so now let's switch gears and focus on the exhale. And imagine with the exhale, as you feel that softening, relaxing sensation, imagine that you could let go of all of your tensions. Imagine you could release any physical tightness in the body any tension in the mind, any emotional tension. And just imagine one breath at a time that you can take a little break from all the stuff that you carry around, all the things you're responsible for, your to-do list, any stressors. And just let yourself focus on the breath. You can even imagine almost like you don't have a body. There's nothing stiff containing you, and you can just melt into a calm pool. And there's this opportunity on the exhale to really let go and to feel this ungrasping sensation. And I invite you to stay with this sensation for as much of the class as is possible for you. So it means we're not going to push in any of our poses. We're not going to force anything. We're just going to be in this space of observation and allowing and just seeing what the spaciousness of our body wants to explore today. And so let's start by gently extending the legs if the knees are bent. Slowly circle the arms overhead. Make sure the shoulders stay relaxed so it doesn't matter how high the arms go. And then start to reach through the fingers and toes, letting the body get long, but trying to avoid tipping the pelvis forward or back. And when you find that space, when the pelvis is neutral and the arms and legs are reaching, it should feel like you're getting tighter through the center. And that tightness is support around the spine. No tension at all. Observe your next couple of breaths in this spacious reaching out posture. And then glide your right heel in, placing the sole of the foot to the earth. Gently press into the right foot, and notice how pressing into that foot starts to send you over to the left hand side, lying on the left side of the body. And before we pause on the left side, start to melt back from the position that you were in before. And do this a couple times, pushing into the foot. Notice how the hip starts to peel away from the mat. Let that send you all the way onto the left side of the hip and the shoulder. And then let the body melt back into that calming pool where there's no tension, there's no effort. Let everything release for a moment. One last time, push into the foot, feeling the chain reaction of the muscles in the leg and then the hip and then around the spine. And then this time we'll pause on the side, bend the knees just a little so you feel quite relaxed here, and place the right hand in front of you, almost like a kickstand so you don't tip forward. Take a moment to soften here and just explore what it feels like to breathe as the left side of the rib cage is massaged by the earth. And then we'll start to massage through the rib cage here. So start to melt the heart forward just a little bit, massaging slightly towards the front side of the rib cage. And then do the same thing towards the back. And I'm going to give you a few moments to explore this on your own. See if you can feel the bones pressing either into the soft tissue of your body or into the floor. And please accommodate your head or any joints in the body that need support. Make sure this feels comfortable. And then let's spread out from the rib cage, and yogi's choice, you can explore up through the arm, down through the leg. Maybe you have an area in the body that needs a little extra attention. Often we have some tightness in the shoulders. And let this be a massage. And the floor is massaging from the outside in, but let your awareness and your breath massage you from the inside out. Then pause your movement. Let everything become still for just a moment. And slowly start to extend the legs and flex the feet. Almost imagine you're in Tadasana. Start to hover the top hand and notice if it feels challenging. If it's okay on the shoulder, reach the arm overhead and take a moment to find your balance here and try to relax. But you might feel some little wiggles. You might feel your deep core come online so you don't tip forward or tip back. Slowly let the right foot come in front of the left and let the right shoulder melt towards the floor so you're in a gentle spinal twist. We'll play a little tug of war here. So reach the right foot forward and to the left, so it almost wants to put you onto your belly, and then reach the hand behind you so it almost is trying to bring you onto your back. Play a little tug of war, trying to feel the connections between the arm and the leg. And then switch. So now the right leg comes behind you and the right arm comes in front of you. Same thing, tug of war, but now we're letting the hip open a little bit. And what I love so much about these kind of movements is we don't have an idea or an attachment of what it should look like. There really is no goal beyond the sensation itself. So try to feel that freedom to just massage through the body without any tension in the mind of how far you should be able to go or any story like that. The next time the right leg starts to pull back, let it slowly, so slowly, like a minimum of 3 breaths, let it slowly pull you all the way onto the back. And we'll pause on the back. Let's bring the arms down just so the shoulders can relax. Be still and notice the results of that exploration. Maybe there's some warmth in the body or extra awareness through the right leg. Maybe there's warmth in that left shoulder, that area that was constantly being massaged. We'll do that same thing on the second side. So whenever you're ready, you can very slowly sweep the arms across the floor, getting that gentle massage through that most superficial layer of fascia right underneath the skin. Take a moment to spread out without any tension. And then glide the left heel in, placing the sole of the left foot to the earth and push into it, letting everything stack and roll over to the right and then release. And take a few of these, noticing the pressure of the foot on the earth, noticing how the rest of the joints respond to that. I really love this little articulation between the shoulder blade and the upper back as everything starts to stack over to the right. And then when it feels right for you, you can roll all the way onto the right side. I know we're facing away from each other, but we're just doing the same thing. So bend the knees, Stack the legs. Make sure the head feels supported, but the arm is not straining. Bring the left hand in front of you. And just breathe and relax for a moment. Feel the weight of the body on the floor. And then we'll start with our rib cage. So just breathe into the right side of the rib cage. Feel that expansion. Maybe you can even feel that massage happening through the contact of the right side of the body and the floor. And then gently start to rock forward and back, massaging through the intercostal muscles, the muscles between each rib. Let the rocking be really slow, really relaxed. And then you can keep your focus on the rib cage or give yourself permission to explore a little bit. And it's okay to push a little extra in a certain spot if that feels good. Just make sure you're only releasing tension and not building any. And then come back to stillness. Slowly start to expand the legs and flex the feet as if you're standing on the ground. Reach the left arm overhead and take a moment to balance here. If it feels good, you can push the feet down to an invisible floor perpendicular to the real floor and reach the arms overhead and feel that corseting at the center of the body, just like we did on the back. And then let the left leg come in front. Allow the left arm to start to peel behind you and play a little bit of that tug of war. And if it's too much on the left shoulder, you can keep the left arm reaching up and don't worry about bringing it to the floor. You can even relax the arm to the side and just reach through the shoulder instead of reaching through the arm. That's what I'm doing, and it's feeling really nice. And again, use this as an opportunity to feel the connections in the body. The movement starts at the foot, but then your awareness can travel all the way up to the crown of the head, and then the reverse from the shoulder peeling back all the way down to the sole of the foot. And then pause and swap. So the left leg comes behind you, the left arm comes in front of you, and now as we play this tug of war, we get this bonus hip opening action. Make sure you're feeling it more in the front of the left hip and not in the low back, right? We want the extension to be coming from the hip and not the back, and that's a pretty common pattern of imbalance. So if you feel it in the low back, don't feel bad. Just try to neutralize the pelvis. Reach from the foot and stabilize through the core. The next time the left leg reaches behind you, take 3 breaths to very slowly melt onto the back. Bring the hands down like a mini Savasana and just pause. And remember that prompt to let everything go, even the physical container of the body, and just be completely relaxed in a calm pool. Bring one heel in at a time to a bridge pose setup. And walk the feet mats distance apart. Start to windshield wiper the legs. Bring the hands to the pelvis and keep the pelvis anchored so it doesn't move and just the legs move. And this actually turns on the deep core. Try walking the feet in a little bit, out a little bit to find the most comfortable place for your pelvis and your spine. And with the fingertips on the hips, you can walk the fingers just inside of the hip bones, and you might notice that little bit of brightness or muscle engagement that is required to keep the pelvis neutral. Come back to center. With that same neutral pelvis, float the shins parallel to the earth. The arms can reach down, palms face down, and slowly tap one toe down at a time and then the other. And tapping the toe down is going to pull the pelvis slightly forward, so your core has to engage extra to not allow that action to occur. See if you can actively press the low back into the mat and notice how that work increases or becomes a little more challenging when the leg lowers. The next time the left foot lowers, float your arms to a T and very slowly start to tip the knees over to the left for a spinal twist. Try to feel how the pelvis stays connected to the rib cage so the knees don't go all the way over. And then float back to the center, swap the legs, and then spiral the other way. And we'll do a few of these. So you go through center, and then you switch the legs, and then keep on twisting. Start to move at your own pace, remembering the fulcrum of this movement is the core exercise. And we want to keep the core engaged as we spiral. And maybe you'll start to feel how the muscles on the side body engage a little bit extra as the weight of the legs wants to pull you over to that one side, but you resist. If you want a little bit more here, as you tip to one side, the top leg can extend and flex the foot, and that's going to apply even more weight, and it's going to increase the stretch on that top leg. Just make sure that doesn't create any strain. And then come back to center. Bring both soles of the feet back to the earth. No need to rush. You can balance out sides. The next time the left leg is on top, you're balanced. Let's reach our hands back down towards the heels. Anchor the feet. Anchor the big toes. And slowly start to reach the knees wide to the fourth toe next to the pinky. Let that unweight the pelvis and slowly roll the spine up one vertebra at a time to bridge. And then set the spine down one vertebra at a time. And then we're going to do this again, but the next time take 2 breaths to lift the spine. And then 2 breaths to set the spine down. And then 3 breaths to lift and 3 breaths to lower. And the next time the pelvis lands, and of course no need to rush, you might have a longer breath than me, which is great. Just let yourself be and observe. And then gently roll onto the left side, push down into the hands so you can start to make your way up and pull the knees underneath the body so you're in tabletop and your head is in the same place that it was before, but now you're face down. Let's wake up the shoulders a little bit. So start to shift the weight from hand to hand. Let the arms get really soft. The pinky side of the hand, take a little more weight. This is going to take the pressure out of the wrist. Let the knuckles be loose so they're not actively pressing down into the mat. Try walking the hands slightly back towards the knees and just notice if that feels more stable on the shoulders. And then place the hands underneath the shoulders, flatten the tops of the feet, and start to drag the hands back towards the knees without actually moving them, and nice and wide towards the back corners of the mat. As you do that, notice the sensation through the back of the arms and the back of the shoulders, and use that to start to lengthen the spine and gaze forward into cow pose. And then we'll do the opposite. Push the hands forward and together as you start to round into cat pose. And we're going to take our time with this. So on your own, sync this with your breath. We'll keep it classic here, and we'll just inhale as we come into cow. And then we'll exhale into cat. Let the movement originate from the arms, but here's a little trick. As you round into cat, try to round more from the bottom of the spine, because it's naturally going to want to go into the top of the spine where we already hunch a little anyway. As you arch into cow, it's going to naturally want to go into the low back. Try to get more arch in the upper back. So I'll cue that again just in case it's confusing. Let's all say on the same one for just learning this technique. So as the hands push forward and together and you round into cat, try to round extra at the low back. It's going to feel like you can't go quite as far. Jay, great job. Your spine looks really nice and even, and that's the goal. And then drag the hands back and wide. It's going to be easier to arch at the low back, so instead try to use this to arch in the upper spine. And this is one of the ways that we're spring cleaning, right? Instead of just going into our patterns of where it's easiest to move, we're going to find those areas that we have forgotten. If the arms ever get tired, you can lower onto the forearms and do the same thing here. You're just not going to get quite as much movement through the spine, but that's just fine. And try to find the place where it's a little harder for you to arch or a little harder for you to round. And the beauty of this is by bringing your awareness to that forgotten area, you'll start to turn on muscles that may have gone dormant. You'll start to massage tissues that may be pretty stagnant, right? Areas that have gone untouched by movement, by pressure, by awareness for a while. And if you haven't lowered to the forearms yet, I've been doing that and it feels really nice. Let's all lower to the forearms for a few last rounds. Give the wrists a little break. And then start to circle the hips laterally. So as if there was a circle on the mat beneath you and you were tracing it with the movement of the pelvis. And let this movement wake up awareness in the back of the hips and the side of the hips. And you might also start to feel what's being woken up in your shoulders. Try to maintain a neutral spine here if you can. And then let's start to circle the opposite way. And eventually let the circles bring you back to center. Press the hips back to the heels, melt the forehead to the mat, or if that is too far away, stack the hands. And just take a little rest and let the body absorb the work you've just done. You might hear the breath echoing off the floor beneath you. You might feel the breath gently pressing towards the legs. Also become aware of the breath on the back side of the body. And then slowly float back up to tabletop. Walk the hands a little further forward, tuck the toes under, and with an exhale, hover the knees away from the mat and then set them back down. Do this a couple of times. And then the next time the legs hover, push into the hands a little extra to send the hips up and back into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. I like to keep a deep bend in my knees so that I can lengthen through the spine. Oh, great job, Mom and Jay. Those were great adjustments. I know it's a little slippery on the blanket. I still like it because it means I can't over push into this pose. I have to be a little more sensitive with my hands. Let the hips start to sway a little bit side to side, and notice how that swaying lengthens one side of the body, one side of the spine. And then slowly lower just the right knee down. Lift the left leg and imagine the left leg like a big pendulum, and you're going to slowly lower the foot and let the pendulum swing so the left foot can step outside of the hands with as minimal effort as possible. So I can show that to you one more time. The leg lifts and then it drops and swings forward outside of the hands. Great. How did that feel, Jay? That looked really fluid. Nice. Make sure the foot is outside of the hand, so that's to the left. Slowly push down into the back knee and the front foot to rise up. If you want to grab a blanket here, I highly recommend placing a blanket underneath the knees. And actually, as long as we're grabbing props, let's grab 2 blocks if you have them. It's okay if you don't. I just find when I have the blocks under my hands, I can get a lot more fluidity in my movements here. And I'm going to turn a little just so that you have a better angle of what I'm doing. You're welcome to turn as I am or not. So once you've found this position, look down at the left foot. Start to push the left big toe down into the earth, and it's not intense. It's just like a gentle anchoring. You might notice how the ball of the foot engages slightly. Try to relax the other toes so they're not gripping. And slowly start to draw some little circles with the left knee around the left ankle. Keep the big toe down, and that's going to help different muscles in the left foot engage. In our teacher training group last week, we were learning about balance poses, and I said keeping the big toe anchored is like the secret trick to great balance. And so if it feels hard here to keep the big toe down, this is a really good exercise because it only becomes harder as we're standing and as we're shifting weight. And we're just warming up this process. And then imagine plugging the heel into the earth, keeping that stability as you allow the knee to bend forward. You don't want any pressure in the front of the knee, but it is totally safe for the knee to come past the ankle. Start to explore bending the knee forward and then extending the leg. If this is tricky and you don't have a lot of movement here, this is a really essential exercise for you. It's going to make it easier to walk. It's going to make it easier to walk barefoot around the house. It's going to prevent plantar fasciitis. It's going to give your feet a lot more intelligence so that your knees and your hips and your low back stay happy and supported. And I'm going to go back to the original orientation for the next movement. Bring the right hand off of the block, glide the left foot back, and then slowly shift the weight over into the right hand to stack the left shoulder over the right and reach the left hand to the sky. Can allow the right knee to push down into the earth, and as you do that, notice if the left leg gets a little lighter. Maybe it flexes and hovers. Then bring the toes back down, roll back down to table with that one leg extended, and let's try this a couple of times. So the weight shifts into the right, You slowly stack everything on top, letting the hips open, and maybe the foot hovers. Take a couple more on your own and try to feel that progression of the slow stacking, the hips opening. Maybe that top leg hovering if it feels so inclined. And the next time you're stacked open, pause there for a couple of breaths. And if the foot is lifted, point the toes and gently release the left foot down, and then press into the left foot to let the whole left side of the body lengthen like a rainbow. And I'm sorry that you're facing away from me here. Take a breath. And then wrap the left arm behind the right arm, threading it through, and then flutter it back open. Take a few of these and notice how the weight shifting changes where you feel this on the right shoulder. So as you wrap forward, you might feel a little more on the thumb side and the chest side of the body. And then as you open, you might feel more on the pinky side and the back of the body. Take one more. And then release the left hand down, tuck the toes under, keep the legs staggered. We'll push back for one moment in our stagger down dog. And then glide the right foot back to meet the left for a moment of normal down dog. Lower the left knee. We'll do the same thing on the second side. So now the right leg lifts and then it will pendulum swing to the outside of the hands. You can try that a couple times if it feels useful. Great, Roseanne, that looked effortless. And then walk your hands up on the blocks and bring your awareness to the right foot now. Take a moment, imagine like I was trying to pull the blanket from underneath that right big toe and you were trying to pin it down without creating tension. And then start to draw your little circles with the knee. And again, be patient with yourself, especially if you haven't worked much with the toes. Sometimes it feels like I can't even control what my foot is doing. That's okay. That's a huge step in waking up awareness there. You can circle the opposite direction. Make sure you're breathing. Make sure your wrists feel supported so you're paying attention to what's happening to the upper body as well. And then plug the heel in as you start to bend a little more into the front knee. And this is a really essential cue. Keeping anchored through that heel is what is going to keep the knee safe, right? So when we're putting a lot of pressure down into that heel, we have more muscular engagement up through the calf and the hamstrings, and that's going to unload any pressure in the knee. Can circle the opposite direction. And then glide the right leg back. We should have done this side first because you'll be able to see me better. Bring the left hand down to the earth underneath the left shoulder and then slowly shift the weight to the left so that the right shoulder can stack on top of the left. Let the hip follow so it's stacking. Option to flex the right foot and let the foot hover. Arms can reach up. If that feels good, you can pause there. And then you can touch the foot down, slowly unroll back to center. Take a couple of these. And then once you've got the hang of it, you can add that threading through with the arm, where the right arm threads between the left arm and the left leg, and then everything opens back up. And if this is too much on the wrist, you can always use the forearm on the block. That can be a nice alternative. And the next time you open up, pause there. Take a couple of breaths. And then if the leg is lifted, point the toes, slowly lower it down and let the whole right side of the body arc, and try to reach back through the foot and feel how it connects into the right hip, into the right side of the rib cage. Support the right side of the neck and the head. And then release the hands down. Option to have the hands on blocks or on the floor. And we'll push back to our staggered down dog. And then start to walk the feet forward. It's okay if your blanket is there from supporting your knees. Walk your blocks to the highest height. And then bend the knees really generously so it feels more relaxed to be here, right? Like there's no strain anywhere in the body. And start to anchor the big toes just like we practiced, and plug the heels in to the floor just like we practiced. As you bend the knees, send the hips back. You might feel the glutes engage or the hamstrings. And the next time the hips come back, walk the blocks in just a little bit, and let's start to play with the cat and cow, pushing and pulling with the hands just like we did before. So the hands pull back and wide, and let that movement start to arc through the spine. And remember, here we want to focus on the upper spine, the forgotten area. You're not going to go as far, but it's going to get into the places of the spine that we don't often touch. And then press into the blocks, rounding the spine, push the hands forward, and this goes down into the low back. Let's take a couple on our own. If you want to sync them with the breath, we can do the classic inhale for cow, exhale for cat, or you can do reverse breathing here. It's one of my favorite places to reverse breathe. And the next time you round, pause there, feel that strength at the low back. Push in the hands a little extra and see if you can feel the support that's waking up on the front of your spine here. And then if it feels safe and there's no pain, you can lift the hands from the blocks, and let's slowly roll up by pushing the hips forward. As you push the hips forward, you should feel one vertebra at a time stacking. Take your time. And then when you get to the top, reach the arms up and do a nice gentle backstroke, no pressure in the shoulders as you do that. Bend the knees, bring the hands back to the block, and then let's push the hands together and forward to round into cat. Slowly roll up, this time taking 2 breaths to roll up. And when you get to the top, big circle. Bend the knees, hands to the blocks. Push hands forward and together to round the spine. This time let's take 3 breaths. Then make sure you feel supported here. It should really be like an articulating and strengthening exercise and not feel any pressure or even stretching through the spine. And this time as we arise at the top, pause. The hands can stay overhead if that's comfortable on the shoulders, or they can relax down to the sides. And let's all sweep our arms down and back as we shift forward onto the balls of the feet, onto tippy toes. Find a steady gaze, a drishti. Breathe for a moment. It's okay if there's some wobbles in the ankles. Anchor through the big toe and try to find balance through the ankle where it's not dropping in or out. And then slowly lower the heels down. Reach the hips back as you bend the knees and sweep the arms forward for chair pose. Shift the weight into the left foot and glide the right foot back. Slowly seal the back heel down for Virabhadrasana 1. Push evenly into both feet. Let the whole front of the body open. The arms can reach up. Take a breath here. And then slowly melt the spine forward. Bend the front knee as much as you need to comfortably bring the hands to the blocks. And let's try that cat pose again. So anchor the big toe. Press into the blocks and imagine pushing them forward and together as you round through the low back. Take a couple of breaths here. You can sway from side to side to make sure you're not creating any tension. And then bend the front knee just a little bit. Shift the weight into the right hand and let the spine lengthen. Reach the left hand forward, up and back for a moment in Trikonasana, or Trikonasana rather. And then as the arm slowly circles back and down, place it to the block. Bend the left knee, and just like we did from kneeling, push into the left foot and let the shoulders start to stack. Let the hips start to stack for a moment. And we're not going to do Urdhva Chandrasana today, but I want you to imagine that Urdhva Chandrasana is that same opening and stacking. The only difference is the back foot is up. Pause here for a moment and then release the hand back down. We'll do that one more time. So circle the left arm forward, up and back. And then as the arm comes down, shift the weight, bend the knee, let everything stack open. If the body is craving it and you want to hover the back leg, you can. But we haven't been standing very long, so that's kind of a lot. And then release the foot down, bring the hands to the blocks, and let's take one more parsvottanasana, pushing the hands forward and together, letting the low back lengthen as it rounds. Sway if it feels good. And then bend the front knee, bring the back foot in, push into the blocks to round the bottom of the spine. Stay really long through the upper spine and through the neck. And then start to push the hips forward, letting one vertebra at a time stack. Let the arms come overhead and pause for a moment. And then sweep the arms back, come on to the tippy toes. The heels can lift just a teensy bit or a lot if that feels good and balanced. Set the heels down, hips reach back, arms sweep forward. This time shift the weight into the right foot. Glide the left foot back, bring the left heel down. Shift equal weight into both feet and then slowly press down into the feet to open the front of the body. Keep bending into the right knee, so it's kind of a tug of war as the knee reaches forward and the heart reaches up and back. And then drape the body over the legs, release the hands to the blocks and push the hands forward and together to cat through the bottom of the spine. Add that little sway. Check in with the neck. And notice how using the arms and bringing cat down into the bottom of the spine, how that gives you the possibility to integrate the movement down into the legs. Notice any sense of evenness through the body. And slide the right foot slightly over to the right. It's going to make Trikonasana easier. Bend the right knee. Reach the right arm forward, up, and back. Let the right leg lengthen a little bit if that feels good. And then as the arm circles down, you can bring it to the block, shift the weight over to the right, slowly peel the heart open, stack the arms. Option to peel the hips open, but you can keep the legs on the ground. It's kind of like Trikonasana. And then release the arm back down. We'll do that one more time. So making our big circle, option to kick into the right leg as the right arm circles. And then place the hand down to the block. Let everything open and stack. Option to let the left leg hover, but only if you're craving it. And then release that foot down. Release the hands to the blocks, and we'll take one more parsvottanasana. Bend the front knee, step the back foot forward, bend the knees deeply, draping the body forward. Keep the hands on the blocks. We're going to do one last roll up, and take your time moving as slowly as you need to feel one vertebra at a time. Let's begin by pressing into the hands. pushing the blocks forward and together to round the bottom of the spine, creating that support on the front of the spine. And then start to send the hips forward and move with a lot of control, trying to articulate through each of those vertebrae as if you were massaging away any tension, inviting blood flow, nourishment. And once you make it to the top and the arms are above head, press into the left foot and notice how that starts to rotate your body to the right. Reach up with the right arm and circle the arm back and down. And we'll do this a couple of times on the same side. So push with the left foot, let the right arm circle back and down, and start to reach a little extra through the arm so that the shoulder blade slides on the rib cage. So as you reach forward, the shoulder blade reaches forward. As you reach up, shoulder blade reaches up. As you reach back, the shoulder blade reaches towards the spine. Do one more. And then pause at center, release both arms down. Before we do the second side, just notice the difference in sensations between your shoulders. And then we'll give our left shoulder a little rinse. So push into the right foot. Notice how the body starts to sway to the left shoulder starts to reach back, and then we'll add the arm circle. So now the left arm reaches forward, up, and back. And then it comes down. And let this movement follow the pushing of the foot. So the foot pushes and then everything else follows. Kind of like the tug of war at the beginning of class, where it started at the foot and you could feel how that action translated all the way up. And then pay some extra attention to your shoulder blade. As the arm reaches forward, let the shoulder blade glide wide on the rib cage. As it reaches up, let the shoulder blade glide upward. As it reaches back, let it retract towards the spine. Do a couple more on your own. And then come back to center and start to bounce through the knees. Almost imagine like you're on safari. There's no paved roads, and you're feeling all the bumps. And let everything release here. So there's no tension in the shoulders. There's no tension in the neck. There's no tension in the low back or anywhere that you carry tension. Oh, nice, Roseanne. You're really good at this. It's hard. It actually is hard to shake. So I'm not making a joke. It is a skill. And you can do this as long as you'd like, but when you feel like you've shook out your tension, you can come back to stillness. And sometimes that shaking can be energizing. You might feel a little tingling. Just be with your experience now in stillness. And then let's start to make our way down to the floor. There is one thing I want to do before we come all the way down. Leave one of your blocks at the highest height and turn towards me. Step your feet a little wider than the hips. If your knee blanket is still there, you can now move it over to the side a little bit. And start to circle through the tailbone. And then imagine the tailbone getting heavier and heavier, so the knees start to bend, but the tailbone keeps circling. And the reason why we're circling through the tailbone is so that we don't push too far in our hips. Because if you can't circle, it means that you're losing that support, right? And see if you can circle all the way down to your little seat. And it's okay if there's a moment where you just have to support yourself and sit down. I want to make sure this is comfortable for everyone's knees. I have kind of a big block If it does not feel comfortable, you can bring your hips all the way down to the earth and then step your feet in front of you. If it is comfortable on the block, we're going to do some ankle circles. Oh, good. Okay, it looks like you figured it out. So anchor the big toes and then start to circle through the ankles. And if the high block is too much, you can try different heights here. You can even put the 2 blocks in front of you and do it a little more like a forward fold. I wanted to do one last thing to rinse out through the feet and through the ankles. Because if our feet and ankles are moving well, it really gives the rest of our body the opportunity to be supported and balanced. And then come to stillness for a moment. If this is not a comfortable seat, bring your bottom to the floor. If it is comfortable, you can take a moment just to be here and just gently press the heels down into the earth so you have that support up through the back line of the body. See if that helps with your posture. And then support yourself with one arm as you bring the hips down and move the blocks over to the side. Bring the soles of the feet together and plant your hands behind you so that the spine is nice and long. Squeeze the feet and notice how the feet squeezing together lifts the knees just a little bit. That's actually the deep front line, which is engaged or attached to your adductors and your pelvic floor. And so play with what happens when you squeeze the feet, letting the knees hover and then release. And then let the legs extend in front of you for a moment and start to massage through the sits bones, just like we were doing with our ankle circles, but now we're circling our body to massage the base of the pelvis. If you want a little more core work here, you can hover the hands, but honestly, we're at the end of class, so you can choose to let it be mellow. Try to honor what feels most useful and nourishing to your body. And then eventually let the circles get smaller and smaller. And notice if that smaller and smaller circling can help you sit taller and taller without any tension. Nice. Flex the feet a little bit and notice that draws energy up the front line of the body. So the front of the shins, the quads, rectus abdominis. Notice if that can help you sit tall. And let's just take a couple of breaths in this upright posture, which is a very deep forward fold. And so if it doesn't feel like you can find a neutral spine here, tent the hands behind you and try the same thing. Nice. Yeah, trying to find that length. Everybody's spine looks so great. And then let's swivel to the right. If you've got an extra blanket, roll it up behind the backs of the knees. Before we recline, if you want to grab a sip of water, you can. If you want to grab any warm layers or start to dim the lights in your space, please be my guest. And then as you feel ready, give yourself the space to start to relax and dissolve, letting go completely, coming close to the earth. And Scan the body, just witnessing the sensations without any judgment. Notice if somewhere feels tight and you need to wiggle around a little bit to find some support, letting that area release. The body's craving anything additional, like a gentle spinal twist or one last bridge pose, please be my guest. And then let everything start to settle. And we'll come back to that visualization from the beginning of class of letting go, imagining you don't even have a body and you can just be a completely calm pool. And sink into the breath. See if you can observe the breath without changing it or altering it in any way. And we'll rest here for a nice long Savasana, 15 minutes, which might seem like a long time, but I promise after 10 minutes, something magical really happens in Savasana, and I want you to have that opportunity to let go and release and be very deeply nourished. Let yourself just be. See if you can observe that being, observing your physical body, observing the mind, observing the heart space. And notice if that longer Savasana had a different impact on you. And take your time starting to wake up the physical body by deepening the breath, perhaps making any gentle movements, and see if you can keep observing. And though you're eventually coming up to seated, enjoy any stops along the way. We have spent the past 75 minutes waking up awareness. And so enjoy that awareness. Listen to it. Follow it. Let it inspire you. There's no right or wrong as long as it feels beneficial. And when you do eventually make it upright, give yourself the support you need to sit comfortably, and notice your ability to be still. Notice the support that you've awakened to allow this very challenging posture. And I'm not joking, I think sitting is one of the hardest things that we do to actually do well. And notice how the physical support you've awakened may help you to breathe more naturally, more effortlessly. You can close the eyes or gaze at a single point. Close the mouth if possible. And allow the breath to be as effortless as possible. And notice how when you're not controlling your breath, what a relief that is. To really let go and just allow the breath. Notice if it's easier to focus on the breath after our practice time. Notice if the mind feels different than it usually does throughout the day. And see if you can let the awareness sink beneath the breath and the mind into the heart, into this deeper anchor inside. Let yourself relax and soften. And we'll close with a practice called the deep tension release. And it basically will do for our energetic system everything that our asana practice did for our physical body. So it begins with the gratitude practice and flows right into the tension release. You can bring the hands to the heart center and notice if you're able to feel gratitude in your heart, a tangible feeling of sweetness. And you can cultivate it or grow it by thinking of things in your life for which you are grateful. And this can be people, animals, situations, vacations, whatever helps you feel that spark in the heart. And if it's hard, that's okay. It really is a pattern. Grateful people are used to finding the things that they're grateful for, and we can create this pathway with this practice. And so take the time to think of a few different things and try to feel deep within the well of your heart this quality of gratitude. And it can start really simple, for having a roof over your head, for having food in your refrigerator, for having the wisdom to practice yoga, for the lovely people in your life. And this feeling may present as a warmth or a tingling, a joy, a radiance. Try to physically feel what it's like to be grateful and let that grow. Start to let go of the catalyst, the things you're thinking of, and just be in that feeling. Breathe into it, let it expand. You literally have the capacity to grow this with your focus, with your wish. And imagine the heart being filled with this sensation and starting to overflow. And this flow can begin to fill the hands, can cup them, let the fingertips start to open. And then eventually allow the hands to start to lift, allow the arms to start to part. And let the sensation from the heart flow and expand to fill this now much larger space. And eventually, on an exhale, just like we practice throughout class, exhaling to release, we'll exhale, we'll release all this gratitude straight up to the crown of our head, and then straight up from there to our highest self, any of our teachers and guides, especially the energetic ones. Can let the hands float down and let yourself be in that space of observation for a moment. And bring the awareness to the crown of the head. Relax. You might feel, or you can just imagine, gentle sprinkling down of energy. Babaji calls these spiritual vitamins, and when we make energetic offerings, we receive so many more benefits than what we've given. And they are absorbed into our psychic system. And we'll use that energetic flow to go into the tension release practice. So the hands can now release to either side of the body, resting on the floor, your cushion, whatever is natural. And this practice has a few different layers, and we'll start with the breath. And so let the breath come in through the nostrils, let it wash over the forehead, cleansing the mind. And then it sweeps down past the throat to the heart. And feel the breath and the heart expand simultaneously. And the rest of the breath is the exhale, and that pathway travels out towards the shoulders and then down the arms to the center of the palm and fingertips. And so we'll continue to breathe like that, but we'll add a visualization as the breath comes in. Imagine the purest, cleanest water pooling at the heart, starting to mix with any residual tension in the energetic system. Can retain the breath for a moment, letting that mixing occur. And then as you exhale, the mixture pours out of the arms. And the final layer is a mantra that comes from Swami Rudrananda. This whole practice comes from him. He uses the mantra as the breath comes into the heart. When you feel that retention, you can say, I deeply wish to surrender all negative psychic tension, and feel that wish to be free, and then exhale to release. We'll take a few more, and I'll repeat that mantra again. I deeply wish to release all negative psychic tension. You can take one more on your own. And then to end the practice, you can sweep the fingers across the floor, start to flick out the hands, and then shake out the arms. Thank you so much for practicing. I hope you feel cleansed from the inside out. Namaste. Take care, everyone. It was wonderful to practice with you. Enjoy the rest of your evening, the rest of your week, and hope to see you soon. Aloha.